So, with the inevitability of an unwanted season of the Wachowski sisters, the Ncuti Gatwa Season 2 finale of Doctor Who finally touched down on BBC this weekend. Now, I've given it some time to matriculate, much like that bucket of defecation you left out in the sun for 4 days before huffing on very heavily, which is what I presume Russell T Davies had done before writing this, because it's 67 minutes of non-stop, off-the-wall, fast-paced plot points that seem to be absolutely ADHD from the beginning. So we've got a lot to get through. I've taken notes because hell knows we're going to need them. Let's get ready and let's get into it. We start off this episode with the first of many tropes, the literal cliffhanger, where we left off last week with Ncuti hanging onto the balcony of the Bone Tower that two Ranis, we'll get back to that later, have constructed in the previous episode and exploded with him on it, and he's about to fall off. And of course we cut to the super weak theme tune, which has the guiro in it with no drum, no bass. It's just so weak and lame, which really describes everything about this episode from the off, because as soon as the credits finish, we're back to the balcony, which is now about to fall into nothingness, when along comes Anita from the Time Hotel seen earlier in the series with a magic door that just opens on up.
That's just lazy writing.
And she pulls the Doctor through the magic door. And then, of course, the two Ranis sit there capitulating about why he had access to a magic door. Which, again, if you're going to have this bad sort of writing, then at least don't refer to it as if you're being ironic. Honestly. We go back to the Time Hotel, where Anita is explaining the Groundhog Day MacGuffin of May 23rd, whereby she opens the door and shows the Doctor the world hasn't actually just been destroyed, because before it strikes midnight every night, time rewinds and May 23rd happens all over again.
That's just lazy writing.
Anyway, Anita continues to talk to the Doctor and explains to him that she is herself the trope of the infatuated girl who's been searching for him ever since they first met earlier in the series. And the member berries begin with her opening doors to various scenes from previous Doctors, from John Pertwee and such, with her looking in on scenes from those previous episodes. Then... this is quite funny. She gets up to the door where she sees Ncuti and Rogue dancing, and it implies very much that they do something that she herself says kind of forced her into her HR manager Ricardo's arms in order for her to now be carrying his child. So they have a little squee about that, and Ncuti's all happy. And then he looks out the door and explains to Anita that what's going on here with the Groundhog Day is that the Ranis are thinning reality by replaying the day over and over and over again until it wears thinner and thinner, much like the magnetic coating on old audio tape, for example. And they seem to think that by doing this, they will get to the Underverse, which will release Omega. Now, I do actually quite easily remember the Three Doctors and also Arc of Infinity, and Omega is antimatter. Therefore, unless the Underverse is the antimatter universe, then we've already got a massive plot hole here. Nonetheless, they are trying to bring Omega back, and this is the way they're going to do it. Bro, Ghost in the Shell want their girls back. I mean, I just want to take a moment to point out here that Doctor Who actually used to kind of lead the zeitgeist. And sure, the effects were cheap, and sure, a lot of them were really kind of cheesy by today's standards. However, they actually did go on to become part of the zeitgeist. The number of jokes about Daleks and stairs, greetings cards by Gary Larson, for example, it, permeated out through society for in many ways the right reasons. It made it very homely and quite endearing. Now Disney throw all their money at it, and we end up with what looks like a cross between a steampunk Cenobite come one of the girls from Ghost in the Shell that works in operations. Along with that, we also have rejects from Daft Punk who seem to be Varani's guards. And they're arguing amongst themselves because the way that this little mishap has managed to occur is because they missed a day of watching the Doctor. And I say they, I mean the older Rani, who bi-generated in the last episode, because yeah, bi-generation's just a thing. We'll come back to that later as well. What is the Rani's motivation? I really do not understand this myself, and this is something a lot of people have pointed out. The Rani, in her first encounter certainly with the Doctor, was so above and beyond the Time Lord Society. She couldn't care less about Time Lords, about Gallifrey, about the Doctor, about the Master, about anyone, really. She was just doing her thing. And quite honestly, Omega would absolutely have not been of any interest whatsoever for her. She even addresses the Doctor as prancing around like some sort of pompadour. And again, she doesn't care. This is a complete mischaracterization of the Rani. In either affair, I mean, Mrs. Flood is not actually necessarily that bad as a cover for the Rani. If it weren't for the fact that you could tell it was the Rani from the minute Mrs. Flood first appeared. Back at our Time Hotel, Anita takes the Doctor into the bedroom of Poppy in suburbia, where the Doctor, in a show of what I imagine is quite easy acting for Ncuti, toxic masculinity, is on the cards as he shouts Anita down for saying that Poppy didn't exist. She's not here now, she never existed, she was just made up of wishes. And he says, "How dare you?" That's his best Greta Thunberg impression. He says, "It doesn't matter. I've fought the Goblin King and Daleks and all these other member berries, and none of that is as important as this fictional wish baby in suburbia." Okay. And then you hear a call from downstairs from his good, darling wife, Belinda. And he says, "Just make me a cup of tea, darling. I'll be down in a minute." So Poppy and Belinda are waiting downstairs, and the Doctor starts walking down the stairs, defiantly removing his clothes, or his jacket at least, to reveal the oddly kiltish denim pinstripe waistcoat, two-piece skirt dress thang. And this bit has an angelic chorus behind it. It feels like super Gnostic or Deus Ex-ish. And he comes walking along, triumphantly having just transformed into these clothes. I presume, and presumption is the big order of the day here, that, it's just because this is a wish world and he's just wishing, hey, I just want to look like I normally did, or did in the first episode at least. Anyway, he strolls on into the kitchen where Belinda and Poppy have the reaction most people might have, is like, "What the hell are you wearing?" And you're expecting to hear something like that, but no, it literally just shows them like looking at him. Yep, cool, no worries, and without any question whatsoever, boom, let's go to the hotel. Not a, why is there a door opening in the wall? Who's this Anita chick? No, let's just wander into the hotel. No question whatsoever. No, why the hell are you dressed like this? Just off we go. So in they go, and they have a little chat about the fact that Belinda now remembers who she is. And then goes, "Hold on a second, we have a baby." And part of me just thinks for a second, well, hold on a second, like, again, this is rushing super quick here. Would this not have been something that would have been good to build up over several episodes? Because we are slamming through exposition and storyline here at a crazy rate. The Doctor explains that Poppy was born in a day. Now I'm presuming this has to tie into the Groundhog Day, 1 day repetition. Again, presumptions on the top order of the day. Anyway, after a little bit of explanation, the doctor's like, right, we got to sort things out. Let's go get the Rani. We can deal with all of this. So he just walks through another door from the Time Hotel straight into unit headquarters, which is, of course, top security, and it's got to be the worst top security place ever. How many invasions have we had now where unit headquarters has just been walked into by Cybermen, Daleks, this dude? Okay, whatever. So he just walks on in, and he makes a big speech about, I am the Doctor, and he tells Anita that you gotta keep these doors open, right? Because these Time Hotel doors are letting reality slip in. Just stop and think about that for a second. The Time Hotel door is opening into unit headquarters. Reality is now converging. Okay? So Lethbridge Stewart asks the Doctor what is going on. And the Doctor just turns around and says, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what is going on.
That's just lazy writing.
I mean, this is masterclass writing from RTD as an example of how not to write anything. Nonetheless, the Doctor doesn't know what is happening, but he guesses that reality is reasserting itself. Which, when he says this, boom! Here comes Rose Noble. Out of nowhere. Which is just the funniest visual metaphor for reality reasserting itself. I had to note that down because it just made me crack up. It's like, whose reality, RTD? Is it Rose's reality? They, them's reality? Your reality? Just, honestly, this visual metaphor stands up quite high on my list of WTF moments from this episode. And even better than that was why Rose suddenly appeared like this. Because that bigoted Conrad couldn't imagine a they-them. But Anita's here, so don't worry. It's all good. You just pop back into existence. Fantastic. Let us continue. So the bone monsters pop up outside the window. It's like, what are those? And I'm like, hold on a second. These bone monsters are going to get a description or an explanation from the Doctor. Well, I was like, hold on a second, where have I heard this before? These things are kind of like antibodies traveling through to fix the problems of space-time because of the agitation of particles, because of what the Rani's been up to. Like, they're kind of trying to clean time and space. Which immediately made me think of Rose's dad, when Rose Tyler saved her dad, and those flying demons, which were considerably more fleshy than these things, were flitting about. And also, tangentially, those episodes with the robot, with the tiny, teeny little people in it from Matt Smith's era. Where again, they had the antibodies inside the robot that would kill any foreign entity if that was, the Doctor or whoever. So, okay, yep, let's just recycle that story, bad boy. Let's keep going. So he explains away these creatures, and they're going to be doing all this damage because of the excitation of the particles. So, luckily for Unit, they are going to be introduced to the model family of Doctor Who. Because he has just one more thing like Columbo, my wife, my daughter, and they stand and pose for the perfect family photo. And there's questions about all of this. How could this possibly happen? There's the obvious questions of like, but shoot you man, like, isn't this like a complete U-turn on the entire messaging of your entire series, and even in real life, your own sort of, it's great acting, right? I mean, if you actually go back and watch his attempt at pretending to be Belinda's husband, It's honestly a parody in itself. It's obviously ridiculous. I mean, look at these smiles. They are the fakest smiles, and Poppy's just looking off camera like, yo, I think I need changing, you know. They do their little photo moment, and they say that they need to track down everyone they can to rally together because it's a war. So luckily, Unit have all these little red subdermal devices that they happen to put in anyone that they came across. So here we have Wheelchair Lady, that way back in the Christmas special when RTD said, you know, quite a few of us had a problem on the production team with disabled people being evil. And I said before I even watched that Christmas special, watch how he introduces a wheelchair person, and their wheelchair will be like, it'll make Professor X's wheelchair look brassic. Well, they introduced this chick in her wheelchair, and in the previous episode they established in Wishworld that all of these disabled folk all of these disabled people in Conrad's world are invisible, basically. And when they said that, it sounded like, oh yeah, they just mean, you know, society can't see us. But actually there's several chase sequences where they're sat there, literally in plain sight, and everything goes straight past them. So no, they mean they're literally invisible. And for some bizarre reason, these disabled folk are all shoved into some shanty town under a bridge somewhere. So they activate all these subdermal little red blippy things in the necks of her and Ruby and anyone else they're associated with, Mel, all of the agents of Unit, and they all come rushing. And of course, because Russell T Davies cannot be ableist, Wheelchair Girl, it's really hard for me to say this with a straight face, but here, look, let me just play it for you instead.
Hey, Doc, you better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
What the hell is going on here?
It's for grandpas!
Back to the Future fucking wheelchairs. Why do I do this to myself? We go back to the Rani in her bone tower where she's having this really weird cougar thirsting scene over Conrad, where she dumps a whole bunch more exposition of how she wanted to have like the perfection of that little wish baby that they've been using to wish all of this stuff into existence, but they've actually been using Conrad and she's stuck with him. And he's all like, oh, I'll do anything for you, mistress. And she's like, oh yeah, oh nice, oh lovely, oh. Just creepy. And again, totally not Rani's character whatsoever. But she asks him, can you track the doctor? Can you make a difference in the wish world? We need to find the doctor, so I don't know, make a wish, wish him here. I don't know. Who cares? We go back to Unit where the doctor zaps up with his Sonic Sky remote plans for what you see on the screen here, which is a zero room. Okay, it's a zero room. Anyone remember zero rooms? Anyone remember Peter Davison, where, like, you know, his regeneration didn't go so well, so he had to go into the zero room, but, like, there's some problem with that, so they had to make a zero chamber, which was basically like a coffin on wheels, and have him lie in that and roll around, okay? This thing, like, was built into the TARDIS, okay? This thing is high Time Lord technology. The doctor just goes, hey, yo, like, mix what's up there on that screen with what's there here, yeah? And make me up a zero room. Susan, I need this quick time. Can you do it? Susan's like, yeah, shit, bro, no problem. Ain't no thing. I'll have that done for you in no time. Okay, set your stopwatches. Set your damn stopwatches, okay? Because trust me, this chick's going to turn around high-leveled Time Lord technology in 10 minutes flat. We'll come back to her and check later. So, as she's saying, yeah, no problem, everyone turns up. Wheelchair lady turns up from a rocket experience in Back to the Future. And then Mel turns up on a moped. And immediately I'll say, yeah, bro, how the fuck did you drive that moped to the top of Unit Tower? Don't care, doesn't make sense. Mel goes through a whole bunch of exposition about the Rani. Oh yeah, I remember the Rani. I dealt with her all those years ago with the Doctor. And she's terrible. She just doesn't care for anyone. Massive exposition dump that... Let's stop for 1 second and just think about, who are you selling this to? If you're selling this to those of us that are classic Who fans that may still be here, of which literally the only ones of us that are still here are reviewing it, or just hate watching this stuff, right? They aren't gonna care because they remember the Rani, and none of this is the Rani. This is all some other nonsense, okay? So this exposition dump is not for us. If this exposition dump is intended for new viewers that Jinx Monsoon claimed they'd get like 2 or 3 of for every single Doctor Who classic viewer that they lost, or the potential new Disney viewers, they're not gonna have a clue what Mel's talking about. They barely even know who the hell Mel is. And none of this is going to convince them to go back and watch Kate O'Mara playing her in the original classic Who. It's completely self-defeatist at this point. Nonetheless, as Mel gives her exposition, the Rani turns up and they describe how Conrad's world was created, and the Doctor just shows this incredible disdain for it. Like, this is a horrible place. When, if you go back and look at it, and many people have pointed this out, the world that he had created appeared to be quite nice, ostensibly. Everyone had nice houses, stable jobs that paid them well enough, happy families, plenty of food, bright and sunny. Didn't seem like the worst place other than the over 1984 references for whatever reason they're there. Okay, like, it's just the worst sort of thinly veiled messaging of Orange Man bad, basically, but done in such an inverse manner. It just does, all it serves to do is tell on Russell T Davies. Anyway, the Rani steps in and makes a weird comment about Mel, saying, I'm sure you thought of me every night. To which, again, I'm sat there thinking, hey, this is not characteristic of Rani. And B, did she just make a sex joke? Like, is she insinuating that Mel's been flicking the bean thinking of Rani every night since they met? Like, what the fuck am I watching? Anyway, the Doctor asks how the Rani managed to get out of here, how she managed to avoid being incinerated, and she says she had a time ring.
That's just lazy writing.
And she used that time ring and it avoided genetic eradication that brought her to him for some reason. Now, again, I have to stop him and go, what, dude? The Cartmel Master Plan, Lung Barrow, the Looms, the Sisterhood of Khan. This is why I stopped watching Doctor Who before Christopher Eccleston. I watched Rose about 6 weeks before it aired 20 years ago now on a screener. And I watched it way before anyone else would have largely seen it, the public certainly. And I knew within the first 15 minutes where this was all going. And so did Christopher Eccleston. If you listen to him, he quite openly says, yep, fire them all and I might consider coming back. And I have full respect for Christopher Eccleston because for me, Doctor Who Real ended with Paul McGann. All of the new series have been progressively dropping off a cliff of quality, And it's been messaging from day one. It genuinely has. And I followed it a little bit by dipping into episodes through David Tennant's period. And I think I did dip into a couple during Matt Smith's. Now, more recently, I actually did do a marathon watch through from episode 1, An Unearthly Child, all the way through from William Hartnell, all the way through to I'm currently on Peter Capaldi, and I'm very near the end of his run with Clara. So I have actually watched all of these up to that point. But there is no way on earth I am going to be watching past Peter Capaldi. And there's a very good reason for that, because all the way through, watching it through this time in recent weeks, it just confirmed what I checked out on, was the basis of bait and switch, bait and switch, bait and switch. With the David Tennant era, he bait switched so much, teasing the Time Lord's return, teasing a possible return of Romana, teasing this, teasing that, teasing the next thing. And every time they did it, they just pulled it away like candy from a baby and then laughed in the fans' faces over it. And this is another pure example of that. And I do definitely know that Brendan from the Sense Sphere over on his channel agrees on this. That it is just desecrating all of these classic characters. RTD and by degrees Stephen Moffat and Chris Chinballs have all just progressively tried to desecrate everything, not just the Doctor, but every other redeemable character from the classic franchise that you could possibly recover the storylines with, and overall try to grind the overall universe into such a mess and a waste that you can't even recover the universe in any way without some sort of huge reset. And if you look into the actual background of what is being said in this scene by Varani, having avoided the genetic eradication, I'd say the Time Lords are sterile. Now this ties back to, as I mentioned, the Cartmel Master Plan, the books, and Lung Barrow, where there is a fantastic story waiting to be told there on screen, which would actually tie up the whole Doctor Who canon and mythology in a super sweet bow, and give you a cyclical series that you could watch and start back round at the beginning, go round and round and round forever. And all of this idea of Gallifrey having been sterilised by the Sisterhood of Khan when they were banished from Gallifrey because they were the womenfolk of Gallifrey, or old Gallifrey, but the Time Lord Society did not like their mystical magical ways, they preferred the more scientific ways. So as the Sisterhood were banished, they cursed Gallifrey to sterilisation, which is why the Time Lords then had to come up with genetic looms and regeneration, where once the limit of their regeneration was hit, they would step into the looms and their genetic matter would be copied into the Matrix, and their genetic material would be recycled into new Time Lords. Yeah, that's a very brief high-level overview there, but all of that could be so well explained in so many ways. But no, we're just throwing it away on just a little bit of exposition dump shoved into this absolute steaming pile of turd. Anyway, the two Ranis explain their bi-generation and how old Rani is subservient to the mistress of the new Rani, and they have a few more member berries talking about Omega and how he was exiled, and Lethbridge Stewart says, oh, my dad came across Omega back in the old days, remember that? I remember, yeah. And apparently the Rani wants to bring Omega back for a gene bank to create a new Gallifrey, which once again, she doesn't care about Gallifrey. If people do come into Doctor Who with this and go, you know what, I'm going to go back and watch those previous Rani episodes, it's going to be so disjointed from the continuity of the Rani that we're seeing here, is unrecognisable. She does not care about Gallifrey. So the Doctor explains, maybe we're supposed to be sterile, and maybe we are actually supposed to bi-generate, because bi-generation may itself be our own way of evolving to avoid our extinction, because we're the only Time Lords left. So yeah, it just happened naturally. It just organically, naturally happened. It's nature versus nurture. It's evolution over programming. Again, complete gobbledygook. Now, throughout all of this, there's the suggestion of, why don't, you two Time Lords mate? Now, obviously, because they're sterile, that doesn't, that's not going to happen. But the Rani can't leave it there. She has to give it, you're contaminated, like that Poppy child, yeah? But she's not the solution, because although she's the child of a Time Lord, she's half human, so you're contaminated. Yeah. Which, again, if you go back to the Paul McGann one, and I never agreed with this, okay, and I'm very happy to retcon the Paul McGann film on this one basis alone of, oh, I'm half human. No, the Doctor's not half human, right? He's a full-blood Gallifreyan, right? But, like, the concept of referring back to that here, again, RTD trying to crowbar a member berry in from some other bit of better Doctor Who. So, Rani goes on her rant, and her definition of the Time Lords is expressly in opposition of the original Rani's. And they talk about Belinda and whether she actually does have Poppy, whether she does have Poppy, or whether Poppy is real or not, or just a wish baby, because all children are made of wishes and dreams, are they not? And Belinda's like, I don't care, right? Because, whether she's a wish baby or not, she's my baby. So I don't care whether reality ends. I don't care whether we relive this Groundhog Day over and over and over again. Me. My fantasy child, my wish counts. Fuck the rest of the universe, let's just carry on. Again, the writing here does not endear any one of these characters to anyone in their right mind. Anyway, the Doctor says, you know what, I'm going to stop you, Rani, and pulls out his Sonic Sky remote, which the Rani immediately frazzles, and it pops and fizzes and falls on the floor, and she's all like, oh, well, I'm out of here, I'm going to destroy you guys, and there's nothing you can do about it. So she beams on back to the Bone Palace, and without much of an explanation of how exactly, she decides that the two Ranis are going to provoke the Bone Beast by exciting the particles in Unit Tower in the way Ncuti described earlier. At which point they become a target, all the alarms start going off, and all of the while you've been wondering, why is there a ship wheel just sat there? And Kate Lithbridge Stewart goes, yo, let's just suit up and get ready for battle mode. And it all goes a bit Robotech as Unit Tower bots up and just opens up the whole bunch of guns, laser cannons, parallax cannons. And it gets dude, why does the tower need to why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just have fortifications all around the tower? Why wouldn't you use a whole host of the other technology that you have? Like shields, cloaks, or anything like that? No, we're just gonna go for some sort of mech business just because it looks cool. Whatever, so they all start blasting away and giving it large and shooting at the dinosaurs that are now coming towards them, and it's not looking great. So they need to find somewhere to protect Poppy. So, as all of the laser cannons are firing Alice Star Wars Battlefront outside, the Doctor, Poppy and Belinda go downstairs, and in a record time of exactly 9 minutes 13 seconds, trust me, go check the timestamps yourself, in 9 minutes and 13 seconds, Susan has managed to construct a zero room. What the f*** am I watching? Let's just get this over with. I swear I'm getting brain cancer. Okay, so the Doctor gives you more exposition that if you go stand in there with Poppy, whatever happens out here, as long as you're in that zero room, you will be forever. So again, the insinuation is that Peter Davison, technically, or any of the doctors, way back, could have just gone into their zero room and just sat there forever. And no matter what happened outside in reality, they would be forever. So why didn't they do this in the Time War? Why didn't they literally just build a bunch of zero rooms and just like lock themselves in there and like hide them somewhere really, really good? Anyway, he explains that Destiny denoted that Poppy, a child derived from a wish from ostensibly a madman in Conrad, she had to live, she had to exist, and Destiny denoted that the Doctor had to meet Belinda and had to meet Poppy. Okay? And this again goes against one of the fundamental factors of Doctor Who that I believe Tom Baker refers to quite a lot, is that there's no such thing as destiny, it's just a theory, and he's in many cases proven it wrong. But get in there, lock the door, stay in there no matter what happens, and hey, it might work, it might not work. Again, the Doctor doesn't know. It's just like, trust me bro, just go stand in this box, yeah, with soundproofing, yeah, and we'll be right back in 2 jiffies, darling, honey, sweetheart, yeah? So they lock them in, and meanwhile upstairs, we get a transmat backpack, part of the Indigo project, which I have some vague memory of being mentioned somewhere previously in a previous series. I can't remember. Who gives a flying crap at this point? They give it to Ruby, and they say, right, be careful with this thing, because if you press the yellow button, and she presses the yellow button, and she just moves 5 foot and nothing happens. Like, okay, so you press the yellow button or you move 5 foot, ooh. Big wow. Why did you make out like it was world ending? Nonetheless, the Doctor comes in and it's like, oh, you silly white girl, it's the blue button. So what they've got is a plan to send Ruby to see Conrad and have a go at stopping him from wishing this world's existence and to go back to normal, whilst the Doctor tries to take out the Rani and stop the Rani from summoning Omega from the Underverse. Are you still following this? Like I say, I have notes. That paper is notes. Okay? So, there's one problem. There is a threshold that the Doctor mentions that if they try and transport with the transmat Ruby to the bone tower where Conrad is, she'll be smushed like puree. So, to deal with it, the Doctor has to get into the Rani's bone tower and disable all of this manually. So the way he's going to do this is using the flying vacuum cleaner that Rani was pootling about like the Green Goblin on in the previous episode. Which, if you wind back, you remember when his sonic screwdriver got blown to smithereens and landed on the floor? Well, I tricked you! He actually scanned her codes from her sonic hypo. And now he can use that on the rocket hoover, which will apparently give him the ability to get into the bone tower and also bring down the threshold, which will allow for Ruby to get to Conrad and convince him to wish the world back to normal. So, from that moment, the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver and it all gets a little bit...
What do you mean? Flash Gordon approaching.
that audio silence was actually in the original footage, and I found that unintentionally hilarious. I'm sure it was actually intended seriously, like they are in the Zero Room, Poppy and Belinda are safe, they're outside reality, but it just sounded and appeared just so like something you'd see in Airplane. This is such farce. I can't really keep it together. But please, I will try my best. I mean, God, we are still only halfway through this thing. Let's hurry this up. So, we're back in the Bone Tower with Varani and the Doctor and the other Rani, and she's opening up the doorway for Omega to come out from the Underverse. And again, it's all Hail Omega, our Lord and Master. Where does this idolization of Omega come from? I just don't get it. Meanwhile, Ruby gets out to Conrad because the Doctor has brought down that shield or threshold, whatever the hell it is, and she has this chat with him where she actually acknowledges that his world that he wished up was awesome, and he's like, yeah, I did what the Doctor told me, is you know, all people want is, you know, to be well fed and happy and all this stuff. And again, it's like, well, what is the point then? What point are you trying to make? And I remember an interview with RTD that keeps popping up just before this about this episode and the last episode of how, like, traditional everything was, and how by extension traditional he means wrong. So what's wrong with having a good, happy 2.4 children family life in the suburbs, paid well in a nice house? And Ruby right here acknowledges that with Conrad. So anyway, she psychoanalyzes him, and it turns out he has daddy issues. And it comes up to another trope of the girl makes life better. She can save this dude, she can make him right, she can fix him. So, you know, she's going to try her damnedest to fix Conrad and make it all better. Quickly though, let's get back to the Rani, and it's munch time. I mean, look, seriously, if that sounds like passe, I'm just freezing over this. It happens as quick as that, okay? Omega literally turns up, and the minute the door opened and I saw him call out, I said, it is munch time, and within seconds, yeah, he just picks the Rani up, chomps her down. I should highlight this is obviously the new Rani that he chomps down. And it's just like, yummy, like Time Lords to feast on. And it's hand slaps, face palms all round. Like, what was the point in any of this? With the question of why is Omega looking like this and not in his weird Bumblebee outfit from Arc of Infinity, or the awesome, really odd, like, big helmet outfit from the Three Doctors? Well, the Underverse is a world of myth and legend, and Omega has become his own myth, his own legend. He is the Titan, he is the god of original sin. Which, again, there is a whole bunch to unpack on its own with that reference of just mentioning original sin, which is a second mention of original sin in this context, in this episode. I can't be bothered to go into that depth, I'm sorry, but I'm sure you can read into that for yourself, like this whole original sin thing. Anyway, he chomps down on the Rani, he emits some big old scream, and it goes all scanners for a minute, and all of the rejects and Daft Punks have their head explode. Why? Who knows? We just need them out of the way, I guess. So, the original Rani, Mrs. Flood, in this context at least, says, nope, I'm the fuck out, bro. It's good night from me, good night from her, off you fuck. She uses the timing to disappear. Where? Who cares? Is there an open door for her to come back? I don't give a shit. So she leaves the Doctor behind in the room, and he's backing up, and he's looking all scared, and he's literally saying, there's nothing I can do. I stand here looking for literal plot armor. Not quite, but dude, That is what he's saying. I'm looking for a weapon. Which he happens to find, obviously, in the weapon that's hidden in the clock right behind him. So he picks up the big off fuck off massive gun and blasts the shit out of Omega. With the power of 1 billion supernovas. The Doctor just picked up a gun that was conveniently placed just so he could blast the living shit out of Omega's face right in the mouth hole with the power of 1 billion supernovas. Bro, is there no splashback on this thing? No pass-through? Look at the angle he's shooting that thing. You're telling me, like, the power of 1 billion supernovas is like, it's not going to blow a hole in Omega's head and just, like, take out everything in the bloody planet? Like, how did you even focus that into a beam that small? Just fundamentally, the Doctor using a gun. This is so dead. Just bury the desecrated corpse already. Anyway, back to Ruby and Conrad. She's just like, you know what, your daddy issues, they're a big problem, they caused all of this. And you know what, I think I know the solution. I'm going to pick up a little baby that grants wishes when you kiss it, and I'm going to give it a kiss, and I'm going to wish for Conrad to be happy. Okie dokie, on a wish and a prayer, there you go.
That's just lazy writing.
And with that, within 4 minutes, the absolute climax of this episode has been resolved. Omega has popped back out and been stuffed back in faster than a 4-minute TV meal, and all of Conrad's ill doing is wished away with a kiss and a blow of a baby's head. So with that, the Doctor remembers what Rani said. Where do you think your TARDIS has been in all this? Now, everything's disappearing around him because Conrad's wish has finally been broken by the wish for Conrad to be happy. It looks as though he's going to fall into the floor again, just like at the beginning of the episode. But don't worry, because not only is the plot armor of the gun of 1 billion supernovas there, but so's the TARDIS door right behind him, which he walks through, and hey, Ruby's just stood there with the baby. Why? How? Who gives a fuck? Moving on. The Doctor goes through the Aladdin trope, and with a kiss and a blow, faster than his career dissipates, he destroys all further wishes. He wishes for no more wishes to happen. So you go back to the Zero room and open the door, and what do you know? Poppy's there. It's absolutely fine. Yay, brilliant, happy ending there. Out you come. Woo, everyone cheers. And then Tucci's like, you know what, we've got to do something with this baby that Ruby's got, like the wish baby. So you know what, the best place we can take this is Ruby's mama and her Rasamalai grandmother would speak in the Jamaican accent and play the polka. So they take the wish baby to them and plonk them down, and the mama quite clearly and rightfully says, but there's all the paperwork. And in a move I'm sure a certain gangster rapper from the late 90s, early 2000s and F3 Jepstein would appreciate, with a wave of his magic sonic sky remote, Doctor says, paperwork gone. Paperwork gone. Don't matter, you know, I just give you this little white child and you're gonna rescue it from growing up into a toxic straight white man, yeah? Don't worry about paperwork. Child services don't matter. Yeah? This is how it works. I mean, what is the messaging behind that move? Insane. And it really brings me to this point that has been made several times, that Ncuti Gatwa is literally becoming here the embodiment of a certain trope from back in the old days, and those old days are nowadays you get disclaimers for, and it is literally the magical gentleman of African descent. And that's obviously not the true term, I am paraphrasing, but there was a film released quite recently called The Society of Magical Gentlemen of African Descent. And right here, you are just getting Ncuti, like, just straight up, I am the magical gentleman of African descent, and I wave my magic wand, and you just get a free white baby to protect from growing up into a bigoted, straight, cis white male. So off they go on their adventures because they got a lot to show Poppy. And as he goes back into the TARDIS with Ruby, Belinda's all like, oh, you know, this is a place, a death trap. And he's like, oh, no worries, we're going to do decorating, we're going to get some handrails, and we're going to put up some lovely little crest things and wallpaper. I can do anything with the TARDIS, it's going to look so lovely, squee. And Belinda says, you know, her child's not going to have a boring life, you know, she's going to go out there and live, you know, the wild ride of living with the Doctor, and there's a lot of reference to she can see this, we can take her that, and Ruby's starting to notice my memory's not quite right here. Something's not working here. And then we come to possibly, and I'm going to be honest here, the best visual metaphor in this whole episode. As they're talking, they notice it's quite hot. And like I say, they're talking about where they're going to take Poppy and all of the great things she's going to do and we're going to do together. And they notice it's hot in the TARDIS, so they take off her jacket. And they start passing it between each other, talking about what they're going to do with Poppy and where they're going to go. And they're folding the jacket up, and it slowly gets smaller and smaller into this small handkerchief. This is actually the single best bit of visual metaphor, intentional visual metaphor, that isn't a complete hilarity in the whole episode, because anyone with half a brain could predict once Poppy came out of the zero room, entropy would set in, which entropy is a feature in Doctor Who classically, and I believe was a feature in the involvement of Omega. I believe there's a problem with entropy there in the first place. So in a way, this could have actually been a good plot point if it wasn't for all of the absolute garbage around it. But nonetheless, the Doctor hasn't noticed, and through their conversation they also went from talking about she and what we can do with her to just us, just Belinda and the Doctor. Okay, so they come to this point where they have to maintain the cyclical time loop. And again, this is bending my brain as a plot point, because you have to remember back to they found this particular plan or star map or whatever it was in Belinda's first adventure with the robots, okay, with a planet named after her. So he says here that the robots found this after the Rani destroyed planet Earth. So I have to throw this out into space to make sure they still find it, because now the Rani doesn't blow up planet Earth. Which in itself, is that not changing a whole series of events here? Where it doesn't matter if he's the one throwing it out there, still events have changed. So unless you're going to perpetuate exactly the same series of events, you're going to catch yourself in another bootstrap paradox here. Like, make it make sense. No, actually don't, because I am so sick. We need to get through this. Okay, so he throws the damn star maps or whatever the hell they are out of the door for the robots to find. When Ruby goes, where is Poppy? Look, Poppy's not in her cot anymore. Don't any of you remember her? And they're like, no, who's Poppy? And then the cot itself disappears and there's nothing there. And at this point, right, Belinda and the Doctor actually get quite bolshy with her. And it becomes this whole thing from this point onwards of like, it's really quite insulting to suggest that I have a baby when I don't. And particularly with the Doctor, I mean, that's just ludicrous and insulting. And Ruby's obviously getting really upset with this. And the Doctor explains it away as, you know, your memory's just scrambled. Yeah? You just, memory scrambled. Yeah. And initially you might think that is just them not being part of her memory. For some reason she's special because she has a memory that exists outside of theirs, because of the changes in the timeline that we've just seen. But the Doctor does give off this vibe, I noticed, that in the way that he starts really hurriedly trying to shift the scene on, like, oh, right, Belinda, where are we going to go next? You know, let's try and cover this up. Almost like the Doctor knew that Poppy had existed and just disappeared, but he was trying really hard not to give a crap, and he was just being a dick about it. Anyway, they head on back to Unit HQ, where everyone's celebrating because midnight has struck and May the 24th has finally arrived. And they're all celebrating, they're all clapping, and of course this episode actually aired on May 24th in real life, 2025. And I couldn't help watching this but think, is this an allegory for finally getting this shit show shipped and out of here? Because, good God, like, I feel for the people that watch through all of the season of this garbage, yeah? And the celebration of May 24th arriving just feels like Russell T Davies writing, just like, oh, thank God I'm done with this, I can wipe my hands of it and just flush this turd. Anyway, they have a little celebration, they're all happy. Wheelchair woman gets a hug off of Shooty, and this time she doesn't stink like 6-day-old shit. And after all of this chaos has been going on, and all this battle and all that shit, right? Nita's just chilling in the background. Mug out, and she just stood there, holding the door open. Like, really? Anyway, they have a little chat about how great it is that Anita's helped out. And Anita says, yeah, well, you know, I don't have long to stay here because I've got to be off to see the boss, whoever the fuck the boss is. There's a billion theories on who that is. Again, at this point, do we care? I do not think so. Anyway, she says she's got to be off to see the boss, and off she goes. But then you notice reality's not quite back to normal. Ruby's still on this, oh no, you know, I still think something's wrong. And they notice that apparently Teal is too blue and Ernest Borgnine is still alive. And again, who are you putting these references in for? Right? That's a reference that Family Guy would have done when that started. And we're talking like 20 odd years out from that now. 25 years even, I think, out from that, right? And that's one of those Family Guy cutaway references that most people don't have a damn clue in the modern vernacular. Who the hell is Ernest Borgnine? I know who he is because I watched fucking Airwolf. But do any of the new Disney kids or any Gen Z know who he is? Fuck no! Right? The only way they know is some post-ironic 80s were cool sort of way. Like, who are you writing this for, Russell? Anyway, Mel pops up on the screen with some information of what else is not right, in a way. I don't know, it kind of follows on, so I guess it was, like, wrong. But they found Conrad, and the result of the wish is that he's like a chef somewhere in some restaurant, something. And it's it's good enough living, right? I mean, for one thing, he ain't involved with any of this lot, so it's a damn sight better life than he had before, okay? And Mel says, right, I don't know what it is that Ruby did, right, but she must have done a good thing. And I'm like, yeah, like, how would you know? If reality's reset, and, I mean, for all she knows, Ruby could have got to Conrad and literally crushed his nuts to dust, which would potentially have had the same effect of him wishing that world out of existence. Yeah, if at the very least just to get his nuts back. Yeah? But, yeah, Mel's just like, oh, I think she did a really good thing. Whatever. So Ruby is the only one remembering Poppy here. And seeing that Conrad is still happy brings her to tears. Because isn't it a damn shame that Poppy, the girl born of a wish that never existed at any point other than in mad, bigoted, fascistic Conrad's mind, right? It's a shame she ain't alive. It's a shame it wasn't the straight cis white girl guy that was wiped from existence, right? Should have wiped Conrad, yeah? And brought Poppy back. A girl that didn't even exist. A guy that actually did exist should have been wiped from existence in favour of this fantasy wish upon a star. Ah. It is revealed that the Doctor could not stand for a single life to be missing from the world. And Ruby said that this happened to her, didn't it? Because she was that baby that was erased from time. And way back, I think it was what, a church on Ruby Road, was it? the Doctor saved Ruby. Which again instantly made you go, hold a second. You've been messing with fixed points in time. I.e. the death of Ruby Sunday, or, as it's exposed here, Belinda as well. Apparently, the Doctor's been fucking with fixed points in time, just like Rose did with her dad, by saving Belinda when she was 7 years old from being hit by a car. Bro, where's the bone monsters? Where's the flying fucking drakes that ripped reality apart for Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper? That doesn't matter, mate. Does not matter. Moving on. There's only one way to fix this, right? Because Poppy did exist beforehand. She must have existed beforehand. So the Doctor is going to use the power of the last Time Lord to shift time back 1 degree to the left to put it back into reality as it was properly. And again, I'm like, but bro, the Ronnie just teleported out with a time ring, right? Like, you ain't the last Time Lord, motherfucker. Do you read your own script? Are you even aware of the character's exit 2 minutes ago through a bloody trapdoor? Do you vote into it yourself? No, I need the power of the last Time Lord. This makes me wonder, was this a rewrite? Is this an edit problem with the rewrites and reshoots that we know happened? Anyway, he's going to use the power of the last Time Lord to rectify this. And he has a really novel way of doing it, okay? And we'll get to that in a minute. Because he goes into his TARDIS and Jodie turns up. Because he's all like, right, this is going to be my sacrifice. I'm going to go put all of reality back in by 1 degree to the left, right? And this means that I'm going to regenerate. So I've got to get my pumped up. And the TARDIS shows him member berries of all the previous Doctors before him. And he's like, hey, you know what? I was the best. I mean, the narcissism, bro. To the very end, the narcissism. You are not the best. You're the second shortest serving Doctor. You have been utter garbage from start to finish. Your lack of respect for the character, canon, and fan base has been absolutely irrepressible from day one to now. Okay? You are not the best Doctor. And who better to tell you that than Jodie, the second worst Doctor you could possibly imagine, who was again brought in as a complete diversity prop, basically, to say we've got the first female Doctor, just in the same way Shooty was brought in to say we've got the first gay black Doctor, right? And she's like, yeah, you might have been the best male one, but don't tell the others that. So now we have two of these narcissistic pricks wandering around, and they spend a couple of minutes just basically fan wanking each other. Oh, you're so gorgeous, Shooty. Like, she loves his face. Yeah? And she knows nothing of bi-generations, but timey-wimey is still a thing. And how is it that she's here? Well, she just popped out of her timeline because a cataclysm's come in, which he's gonna cause. No real explanation, but hey, we've only got a few, 20 minutes left of this episode, so we better hurry it along, right? She quotes Troughton about not liking the redecoration and points out how stupid it is to have a huge control room because a control room is defined by its bigness in the first place, which is an absolutely obvious point that everyone made from the very beginning of this series when you first saw the interior of the TARDIS. But again, we've only got like 20 odd minutes of this left, so let's hurry this shit up, okay? So she's like, okay, all these faces and we never really change. Really? Really? You never really changed? I don't know. I'm looking at the pair of you. I ain't seen much of William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, bloody Tom Baker, Peter Davison, John Pertwee, any of them. I don't see any of them in you. One of them's black and gay, the other one's a chick. Like, dude, that is the dumbest line. But she comes in saying, oh, you're going to do all this damage. You may absolutely destroy all of creation. And he's like, oh, you're going to stop me then? This is like, nah, psych, let's do it, yeah? And the sum total of what she's going to do to help him is in your calculations of going to the heart of the time vortex, right? Just knock it off by 1 microspasm. What the hell's a microspasm? Nonetheless, she literally gives him that little nugget of information. He's like, oh, you're a genius, but I'm older than you. You're like, how did I not know that? And I can't remember what she said, but it was basically just like, it's just one of those things. It's a skill, I think, or something. Anyway, she straight up goes, right, well, now you're about to destroy creation. I'm the fuck out, Bray. Ghost you. Yeah, she literally just runs out the door and ghosts into nothing. She escapes this as fast as she can before her career is dragged down irreparably with it, right? So Jodie just legs it. And before she does, we do have a little quick thing where he tells her, I love you. And she's like, oh, yeah, I never say that. I should tell Yez that. So, yeah, just a quick reminder, she's gay. Anyway, gay and ghosting, let's go. It's time to punch some fucking vortices. Yeah. It is time for the Doctor to execute his plan, which is, I'm going to summon up all of the Tinkerbell fairy dust, regen energy, into my fists, and I'm going to punch the time vortex. Yeah, I am fucking Iron Man. And it ends with the shittiest cliche ever. So bad that even Shooty himself looks back at it and goes, holy shit, that was cliched. I mean, look at the shock in his face. Did I just really do that? Jesus Christ. Anyway, he wakes up in Belinda's garden, okay? Poppy and Belinda are just fine. And he goes in to meet them. And he has a chat with them, and apparently the dad is some random dude, and she had to be home, she being Belinda, she had to be home all along to look after Poppy because her mum works nights, okay? And this is where we get a series of flashbacks as exposition of shit I'm certain did not actually happen at any point in the season running up to this, okay? From when you are introduced to Belinda to this point, I do not recall any of these scenes happening. So we're once again falling into this really bad writing ideal of here's a bunch of exposition told through flashbacks of shit you ain't even seen.
That's just lazy writing.
Okay, so apparently she knew that her timeline had been interfered with when she was kidnapped by the robots, and she for somehow had like this knowledge that she needed to reset her timeline by coming back by 7:30 on the 24th of May to make sure that she was there to take over babysitting from her mum, who has a gig in Manchester playing violin. And at this point, this whole diversity yay episode takes a slight turn where it's like, her mum's like, who's this? Oh, it's the doctor from the hospital. Oh, I'm always telling you to bring home a doctor. I mean, dude, wait, did you really just stereotype the Indian stereotype of you marry a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer? But they steer away from that really fast of like, oh, no, I mean, actually, I've got this really bad pain down my side. I need the doctor for me. Yeah? And it's the equivalent of like, I got black friends, so I ain't racist. It's just literally like, it is a really obvious stereotype, but it isn't because I just turned it around at the last minute. Anyway, they have a little chat and a horn beeps and the mum's like, oh, that's for me. Well, I'm off to Manchester. And it's like, okay, the doctor realises, yep, I had to get you back. That was the whole point. It was the whole byline of the original poster and the trailers, get her home. So they go in and she introduces the doctor to Poppy as Uncle Doctor, which is just really weird. Just sounds like, I don't know, some sort of 70 TV Top of the Pop presenter. Uncle Doctor. He's probably been a bit disgraced in recent years. And the doc's all like, So who's the father? And Richie Akinbola. Which again is like, whoa, hold up, bro. That sounds like a bit of a stereotype. Like, where's Felix Dexter right now? You know, because I'm seeing him from his time on the Real McCoy, just like, hello, I am Richie Akinbola. I am studying accountancy but driving a taxi cab. Why do you not speak the Queen's English? Yeah, like, Richie Akinbola. Anyway. She goes off for a minute and the doc has a little moment with Poppy, right? And he says in this, and this is almost a sweet moment, right? Where he actually for a moment seems normal. And he has a little chat with Poppy and relays her that he can't have children, obviously because the Time Lords are sterile. But if he could, he would want to have one just like her. And you're thinking, oh, that's so sweet. But then he's like, but I wished all the wishes away. What clever old me. But narcissism's just back instantaneously. I beat the gods. They always challenge me and I always win. It's like, oh, for God's sake, you can't even just let that moment be a nice moment. You gotta go goof up. Anyway, on he moves. He starts walking off out into the garden. Belinda's following him and she's like, oh, I so hope I get to see you again. And he's like, yeah, I've got to go and you won't see me like this again. And it's like, well, that's an obvious leader to the fact he's regenerating. And then he says, you know, even if you don't remember me, beautiful things can be forgotten, but they still happen. And again, I couldn't help but laugh. Is this again an allegory for this fucking show? Yeah? In RTD's mind, this is a beautiful thing. In Shooty's mind, he's a beautiful thing. His doctor is a beautiful thing. And it can and will be fucking forgotten. And they still fucking happened and we let it happen. It's just so indignant, Bart. It is so indignant. Anyway, it is sentimental music time, okay? Doctor heads on back into his TARDIS. Time to regenerate. He zaps himself off into space. The music builds and he opens up the door going, I don't want to do this alone. And all the lights shut down in the TARDIS. Which again, I'll say, actually, with him walking out and the TARDIS lights all shutting down, that was a really nice little touch. Then he opens the door and he's just like, I will never be alone because I've always got you, Joy. It's like, oh shit, yeah, how's that fat chick that turned into a star, innit? Like, she literally collapsed under her own weight and became a supernova. Okay, why the hell not? Let's have a reference to that. Why the fuck not? Okay, so he's like, joy to the world. And he has like the most insincere last words of like, yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And then the regeneration actually happens. And we get...
Bring me my stunt cock!
Yeah. Stunt cock. Like, the uniform attitude and reaction to this I'm seeing everywhere, generally, is that the return of Billy Piper is, again, this sums up all of RTD and his entire run from 2005 to 2025 of just bait and switch, rehashing old ideas, redoing the same damn storylines, and always falling back on the same old tired tropes. And it should be highlighted, people have pointed out, okay, that it doesn't say Billy Piper as the Doctor, okay? It says introducing Billy Piper. So obviously rumours are abound as to what is going on with this, okay? But suffice to say, that is apparently your cliffhanger. Okay? Now, I've gone through a lot here. This is a much longer review than I'd ever intended it to be. But let me just put it across to you. Like I said at the beginning, I tried to make slides that were addressing the more important plot points, and just to convey those plot points as I raised them. This was a 67-minute episode, and it averages to 1 plot point per minute. What do I think of this overall? Well, what was anyone expecting? A lot of people are very angry with this. I know SenseSphere is angry with it. I know people like Az and Nerdrotic and others in some ways are angry with it. Not as angry as maybe previous episodes, but still, I don't think they're quite as apathetic as I am of it. I mean, I checked out, like I said a long time ago, I checked out in 2005, 6 weeks before Rose was released, by watching it on a screener and realising this is utter garbage and it's going to be agenda-driven nonsense for as long as RTD or anyone associated with him, or Bad Wolf, or people like Rachel Talalay, and anyone else involved that Christopher Eccleston has pointed out should be fired if anyone wants him anywhere near it again. And it does say a lot as well that Billie Piper was there. Billie Piper was there when he said that. Okay? And she kind of just let it roll and kept her damn mouth shut. Because she knew, like, she didn't want to, like, you know, poop in that punch bowl. She's happy to take that money. She's taking that money and she's back. Now, before I get on to what she is going to be, let me just summarize the overall story here, okay? This story was such a hodgepodge mixing pot of so many story threads, so many plot points, so many beats, that you literally can't keep up. Honestly, I was watching it with a good lady driver and mini driver, and multiple points it was a question of like, what's going on? And why have we got so many exposition dumps? It's literally just exposition dump after exposition dump, and none of these things make any sense in the context of the wider Doctor Who universe or inside their own story. Like, even within the 2 episodes we have here, he has so many conflicting elements and too many elements going on at once, and every aspect of it is, what's the explanation for this? Much like Maz in Star Wars, right? In the new Star Wars, which again, I'll do a proper review of that at some point. We watched this the other day as a family. Star Wars episode 7. How did you get Luke Skywalker's lightsaber? That's a story for another time. We don't have time for it now. Who gives a fuck? Move on. That is literally every single plot point raised or issue raised in this. How is the Doctor meeting Jodie? Like, how are they both in the same place? I just popped out of existence. No time to explain that. Moving on. Yeah. Why has the Rani got any interest whatsoever in resurrecting Gallifrey? No explanation for that. No build for that. It's literally just like, oh, I want to rebuild them in my own image. Why? Well, the first time we saw the Rani, he was trying to just take over a race of people, or was it humans, I think, on her own. She just wanted to rule a little quiet planet on her own in the middle of nowhere, without interference. What's the importance of Gallifrey? This does not work. Having 2 Ranis does not work. The bi-generation thing, let's just explain that by saying, oh, it's just evolution, baby. Like, this isn't a Pearl Jam song. Pearl Jam songs make more sense than this. The rocket-powered wheelchair. Again, I sent that clip to Steve from Out of Context on Fluid Vision here. And he literally said he thought that was a Little Britain parody. I was like, no, bro, like, straight up, that was unironically exactly what happened. Like, what are we watching here? This show has jumped the shark so long ago, And the parody has just been getting worse. And I've got to say, I do feel like the writing goes through several phases of starting with this optimism of, we've got this Disney money. I mean, just in these 2 episodes, okay? This optimism of, we've got this Disney money, and I've got free reign to do whatever I want. And no one's going to stop me, so I'm going to throw in the Jinx Monsoons. I'm going to throw in the binary. I'm going to throw in the male presenting Time Lord. I'm going to throw in the they, them, trans, rose replacement. Who's going to stop me? And the writing of this pair of episodes started like that in my mind. It had like this sort of optimism to it. And then it starts going through this phase of manic, oh, hold on, Disney aren't super happy with the crashing ratings and the nonsensical storylines and the terrible acting, direction, colour grading and production. I better like throw something at this, like I need to zhuzh this up. So he starts throwing in all this extra stuff into it. And then it gets into this phase where it feels like it's 2 a.m. and he's had way too many of those mimosas that Arnie mentioned. And he's really depressed and started to like mopingly write out what he knows is going to be the last episode, because someone behind the scenes at Disney had let him know through an email quietly, like, bro, you're cooked. Yeah, you're done. You tried and flew too close to the sun. You are Icarus, my boy. And he's now just sat there, huffing his glue, drinking his mimosa, writing out like some of the more depressing parts in the second half, you know, to the up to the final third. And then you get like the final third with, like I say, these touching moments where, well, for one thing, the huge U-turn of all of the messaging up until this point, but then suddenly, well, actually, Conrad's world wasn't that bad. And you know what? The Doctor really does like the idea of a happy family in one sense, I suppose, in a skewed, twisted way. Yeah, and with all the messaging up until this point, even including Rose disappearing herself for no apparent reason other than Conrad's bigotedness, like, no longer being an issue. Like, it's such a massive U-turn, and that, again, that's the point where I'm thinking he's woken up next day with a terrible hangover, reread the last few pages he wrote on that bend of the night before, and realised, dude, I need to do something that fits the Disney profile of happy family orientated movie. So he just squirts out this whole disingenuous, like, if I could have a child, I'd want her to do just like you, Poppy. There's so many tie-ins to previous episodes of this series and season 1 and the broader continuity of Doctor Who, with so many wasted opportunities. Overall, as I said before, just bury this corpse already. Just bury this corpse already. This has been an absolutely dire episode, which, if it wasn't for my apathy, I swear to God I could not have made it through this. Because I knew everything that was coming. Not even with leaks. I knew all of this was coming, because guess what? I knew RTD before he came to Doctor Who. I knew Stephen Moffat and Chris Chimballs before they came to Doctor Who. I knew that all 3 of them were guilty of having come directly from fan fiction. All of them made fan fiction of this garbage, right? And they even had Mark Gatiss, who is not free from guilt here. He wrote Probe and The Stranger. Go look them up and see what those are like for fan fiction of Doctor Who. Okay? At the end of the day, if you let people like Chris Chimballs campaign as he did to have Doctor Who taken off the air in the first place during the Baker-Sylvester hiatus, and then inevitably at the end of Sylvester McCoy's era, if you're going to let someone like him and a raging activist like RTD control Doctor Who, then what are you expecting? Doctor Who is dead. Russell T Davies buried it. And I now I'm having an aneurysm. I thank you so much for making it this far. This has been Basedriver at Pains Games TV reviewing Doctor Who, The Reality War. I'm gonna go sleep somewhere now.